Welcome to Pody Says, Petty Revenge, for all the stories of small victories over those who've wronged someone. Dear flatmate, I will follow your instructions to the letter. Hey folks, surely not the best story out there, but I hope you'll like it anyway. I live in France, but I come from another European country. One of my flatmates, let's call him Pierre, can be hard to deal with. He spent around 1 year abroad working, and thus he considers his English skills nearly impeccable. To be fair, his English is okay, but far from flawless. This will be important later. In addition to this, one of his worst traits is that sometimes he seems to have an urge to correct any teeny tiny imperfection in your statements. I guess just to show that you're wrong and he knows better. An example? If I said, New Zealand is on the opposite side of the world. Well, technically on the other side of the world there is water. New Zealand is on the opposite side from Spain, not France. Discussion not quoted verbatim, but should give the idea. One specific episode, leading to the malicious compliance, left me with a bad taste in my mouth. I was going to do a very simple hike with some friends, and he stopped me while I was putting my running shoes on, almost ready to exit. Oh, hello. Where are you going? I'm doing an easy hike nearby with some friends. Want to join? Nah, I do not have running shoes. I will buy some and join you next week. Ah, okay, but be careful, because next week we are planning to go hiking in the Alps. You might want to consider buying trekking shoes, not just running shoes. Well, the Alps where? You know, they extend from southern France to Austria. He had a grin on his face, as if to say, I gotcha. His response got me in the wrong way, and I rudely yelled back something in the likes of, oh, come on, you know what I mean. It must be noted that we live approximately 1 hour away from the Alps, and while yes, Alps are huge and range from France to Slovenia, his remark was undoubtedly unnecessary. I quit the flat huffing and went looking for my car. On the way there, I thought that maybe I was too harsh with him. I texted him in English, since in the conversation above he addressed me using it rather than French. My message was, hey, sorry for my reaction before. I did not like your comment, but I should have responded more calmly. He answered back with, haha, it's okay bro. Just remember that I am an accountant and you must be precise with me. Unfortunately, I'm a little touchy and him not apologizing at all made me go in bitter mode. A few days later, I was still salty and I received a message from Pierre in English. The message said, hi, can you put a beer on the fridge for tonight? I read it once again, and a voice in my head whispered part of the message he sent me a few days before. You must be precise with me. So, I grabbed a bottle of his beers and placed it on top of our fridge. He must have had forgotten his request because he did not ask me about the beer, and a few months later, the bottle was still up there, visible only by climbing on a chair. At least I had a good laugh showing it to every friend coming to visit to me. Got compliance for being a smartass. The history of art exam had a very curious question. What's the name of the artist that said that perfect anatomical proportions are 8 head measures? Referring to total body height versus head proportions. 7 or 8, I don't remember. F. What's his name? Wait, that's pretty vague. The exam didn't ask for the first or most prominent artist, so I write down, me. Frickin' genius, right? Well, I received back the exam, graded with the answer wrong. I go to the teacher and try to weasel my way into a correct answer. It clearly doesn't say that the artist must be famous or the first to say so, and I'd consider myself quite an artist, so this should qualify, right? Yeah, but I asked for the name of the artist and you only wrote me. Had you written your name, it would be right. She got me. She got me good. Vampire Princess thinks, reminds me of a time when I couldn't remember the modern Russian flag, so I drew the Imperial Russian flag on a history exam. It was only for bonus points, so no big deal. The professor gave me full credit and then changed the wording for every consecutive use of his question to ask specifically for the modern one. Recut 20 lawns because every blade of grass needs to be the same exact height? Okay. The characters. The crew. My foreman, my direct boss. John, my coworker. L. Our manager, my foreman's boss. Incompetent dick. Some context. So this happened a summer ago. I'm a college student and in the summer, when I'm home, I typically work in landscaping and landscape design as a laborer. Think laying sod and bricks, building fences and decks, or cutting grass. I also live in Mississippi, so it's hot as balls and humid as hell in the summer. This particular summer, I was working on the landscaping side, so I was cutting grass, pulling weeds, upkeep sort of stuff. When it came time to cut grass, I was on weed eater duty. My job was to do trim work, basically cut the grass the mower can't reach. The day. So this Thursday was a particularly hot one, just after a good rain, and so it was excessively hot and humid. To add on to this, the job for that day was a contract place that was 20 or so houses arranged in a circle around 2 ponds, and a walking path making the humidity even higher because of the ponds and lack of airflow. Tall trees around and in the place. The lots themselves weren't particularly big, but the place took 9 to 11 hours to do well, and most of the houses also had the super cranky old people in them that would complain over the most minor things. I'm talking one weed in a flower box under a bush. So we arrive at like 6:15 and get to cutting and all that good stuff. I grab my weed eater, throw my earbuds in, and do my thing. While I weed eat, I'm continually walking and occasionally will bump the weed eater with my leg, raising it up a little bit and making the grass slightly uneven every so often, maybe half an inch at the most. This usually isn't noticeable, but if it happens up against a house or a structure, you can tell if you look for it. So I will typically go back and try to level it out the best I can if I notice it happen. I did the whole place, front yards and backyards. We then weed the whole place front and back. We were getting ready to pack up and head home. It's like 4 o'clock by now, when incompetent Dick comes to the job site and starts looking around. He finishes up and pulls John aside and shows him around the place, then leaves. This process took an hour or so. So myself, John, and Elle have just burnt an hour on overtime, doing nothing. By this point in the week, it was typical for us to be running on overtime. John comes to Elle and I, telling us that we missed a ton of stuff and to grab the weed eaters and a bucket. We then walk around the place and John starts pointing out groups of like 4 blades of grass that are fractions of an inch higher than the others. Barely noticeable crap, like you really gotta look for this stuff hard. Furthermore, if you try to cut some of these with a weed eater, they bend from the downwash of the spinning strings, so you risk gouging a nice 5 to 12 inch circle in the grass trying to cut like 4 blades of grass. We begin to redo the whole place front and back, pulling small frickin' weeds here and there from under bushes and doing our best to cut the offending blades of grass. By the second house, Elle and I are bitching to John. We are hot and tired. It's like 5:30 and we know this will take us 2 more hours. John tells us he knows this is stupid and it's not his fault. He understands the stupidity and our pissedness. Cue the malicious compliance. Elle and I decide we are going to make sure all offending blades of grass are cut to the same height, that new height dirt. The thing is, if you cut grass too low, it can die. We knew this, but incompetent Dick and the cranky old people wanted it the same height exactly, and that's what they were going to get. We re-walk the place and cut any grass that is against something and over the height of dirt. We also made sure to hold our weed eaters in a way that when we cut the offending grass, we hit the surrounding grass with the full 12-inch diameter of the weed eater, leaving a nice 12-inch circle spot that you couldn't see now, but would when the grass died in a few days. We leveled all the grass against any structures, leaving a nice gouge where walls, fences, and flower beds met the lawn. We finished around 7:30 and headed home, and didn't hear a peep the next day. The next week, the lawns had 12-inch brown circles of grass everywhere. By Tuesday, incompetent Dick talked to John about it. John just told him the offending blades had been cut as he asked, and something along the lines of, it was all now uniform in height. We couldn't help that some of the grass didn't survive the new stringent height regulations. Incompetent Dick never talked to Elle, John, or myself about it again. A few notes and fallout. This wasn't the first time and wouldn't be the last time incompetent Dick came to nitpick our work at the end of the day, which would sometimes result in us having to drive across the city or walk a mile or 2 up the road at the end of the day to fix BS little things that weren't messed up, adding hours to already long hot days. Though it was the last time we ever had problems at that place. We also got the satisfaction of knowing that incompetent Dick had to make the numerous calls from cranky old people about their lawns for a few weeks. These people would cuss us out, even before this incident, so I don't want to imagine what they told him. The lawns had still pretty noticeable dead spots and scars when I left towards the end of the summer. Also, incompetent Dick saw himself as better than any of the filthy laborers, Elle and I, and would avoid critiquing us to our faces. This is primarily because the few times he nitpicked us directly, we either told him why it was stupid or handed him our equipment and told him to do it himself, which he would then proceed to F up. This was a common sentiment he held towards all of the crews under his supervision, and their reaction when he critiqued them similarly were similar to ours. In the mornings at the shop, he would sometimes talk about how we needed to be more respectful to him because he was our boss, to which people would reply something about him respecting our quality of work, which it was 99% of the time. Not nitpicking stupid crap, and not showing up at the end of the day to give us more dumb crap to do, such as chop a tree down and then drive off expecting us to load it up when he had an empty, open-top trailer and we had a full box truck. What we did made its way to the other crews, and they carried out similar antics, which led to him getting a tough time from his bosses, who held him responsible for these events. The effects of this general disdain eventually got to him, so much you could see it just by the way he carried himself and the stress on his face. Edit. Incompetent Dick was so bad at his job that he got paid less or at the same rate as the crew foreman under him, while holding the title of being their boss. I know because he would complain about this too when talking to the foreman. Mega Man 2010 thinks, imagine being so stubborn you choose to lead a noticeably stressful life rather than treat your employees with respect. Snoo Pickles 1731 thinks, I used to own a landscaping company, and let me tell you, people can be petty. They would call and cuss me out over a pot plant that was placed a couple of inches too far back or a weed under a brush that was missed. In the beginning, I would be apologetic, but after a few months, I would just tell the client that I'm sorry. I could not service his garden anymore as I was too busy. Then they would get apologetic and backtrack pretty quickly. And on the other note, if you as a boss want to tell an employee to do it better, you sure as hell must be able to do it better than the employee. Even though I had 3 teams working under me, I still would push mowers with them, dig irrigation trenches, climb trees to prune, etc. That is the fastest and best way to earn your employees' respect. Also, I always took my guy's side over customers and have walked off a few jobs and told customers to F off after they were condescending to my guys.